So as the slide says, I'm Roger Cauvin. I used to do a lot of product management, but I'm currently what I call a consumer scientist, which is basically a fancy way of a data scientist who focuses on making predictions about consumer behavior. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about product strategy because it's something that over many years, over my career, I've noticed a lot of people, frankly, just don't even know what it is and why you actually need one. So we're going to be addressing that. Hopefully I intend for this to be a fairly opinionated session, meaning that I will not be afraid to express some maybe sort of controversial or harsh opinions, but I hope it'll also be interactive to enable you to maybe express some of those opinions as well. So without further ado, does anybody have any experience with any of these sponsors? Okay. Tell us about pragmatic marketing.
So I just attended one or two classes, the basics of it's a methodology. They tell you to look at the market, see where it's trending, so look outwards. So just don't be in a room, without talking to users, or you got to go out and look at what's happening in the world before you design products or come up with tackle which problem to solve. So you got to tackle the right problem.
Yep. Anybody else have any experience with pragmatic? Awesome. Cool. I just figured I'd highlight whoever wanted to mention one of the sponsors. So when it comes to product strategy, let's look at the why angle of product strategy. Why would you want to even have a product strategy? Why do we care about this topic at all? Have any of you struggled or has your organization ever struggled with the issue of prioritizing features or anything else that you're working on? All right. And probably, how many of you in response to that struggle came up with the magic spreadsheet? Okay, it's like a scorecard, and boy, we can't agree on what the priorities are, so maybe we just make this objective and we have a scorecard. And there's actually a number of frameworks out there for doing this. And can anybody name maybe one of the frameworks for prioritizing using a scorecard?
RICE.
RICE. What does RICE stand for?
Yeah. Reach, impact, confidence, effort.
Reach, impact, confidence, effort. Impact on what?
Customer impact.
Business.
Okay. Reach to whom? Target customers. Interesting. Okay. And on the impact side, it was, again, impact on customers, on target customers. In particular, ones who impact them how? How do you want to impact that target market?
So you don't know if you don't have a strategy.
True. Maybe that's one of the components of strategy, right? So maybe if you had answers to things like that, whether you're using RICE or whether you toss the scorecard entirely to make your product prioritization decisions, maybe you can now have conversations around, our maybe top persona representing our target customer is Judy. Let's talk about what Judy's priorities are, right? So we have these features. How do they impact Judy? And maybe some of the features have no positive impact on Judy, so why do we care? Why would we think that they might be high priority? Let's maybe just lower those on the priority scorecard or just in our conversations about what the priorities are. I thought this was really interesting on that note. This comes from a post by a fellow named Denny Cleach. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is a prolific poster on the platform formerly known as Twitter. And he has a lot of good stuff. He posted this for feedback. And he basically challenged people. He said, okay, this is like a question in a product management quiz. You have this, here's the case study, here's the context, make a decision as to what the priorities are. And like the number of requests from users, enterprise clients, stuff like that. And it's kind of like, I think there's a lot of missing information here. What's your product strategy? Again, who is your target market? What problems do they have? Maybe that would be helpful. So that gets into what a product strategy is. But here's what's interesting. You've got a bunch of people, product management gurus out there, like Saeed, who was the source of this slide. And they have this idea of what product strategy is, or they use the term. They'll even create frameworks like this one, where they place product strategy in a certain place in the framework. And not sure if they've really used that word properly. Here's another one, Radhika Dutt. She's fantastic, but I don't know if she's really using strategy in the right way here. She's distinguishing vision from strategy. Prioritization is not strategy. Execution and measurement, not strategy. Culture isn't strategy either, according to this. Go back to Saeed. Again, vision isn't strategy. Objectives aren't strategy. Roadmap isn't strategy. What all of them are failing to recognize is that strategy is a relative concept. Asking, is this strategy or not, is like asking, is a skyscraper a tall building? Or is this random building here a tall building? It's all relative. If you can compare it to something else, you can answer the question. Compare it to another building. And so what you really have is a hierarchy of product decisions. And at the root of that hierarchy is the most strategic decisions, right? It's the ones that really, out of that decision, that high-level decision that you've made, maybe like a product vision, for example, all of the rest of the decisions it helps govern and set a policy for all of the rest of those decisions. If you look in the dictionary at the definition of strategy, you find a plan for something along the lines of a plan for action. Some of the dictionary definitions say a plan or policy for action. That makes a lot more sense, policy. A plan is a sequence. A strategy is a set of high-level decisions that I've made that are going to serve as policies that drive the lower-level decisions. And in the case of prioritization, they're a framework for making those prioritization decisions. RICE, that framework, so to speak, that's great. That's like a kind of a mechanical spreadsheet type framework. What you need is a strategic framework. But the basic point there is you have this sort of cascade of choices when it comes to strategy. This particular diagram, how many of you are familiar with Roger Martin? Okay. When I bring up product strategy on the platform formerly known as Twitter, invariably somebody will say, oh, well, Roger Martin says such and such. And indeed, Roger Martin is a fantastic guru on the subject of product strategy. But even he is a little bit sort of doesn't fully appreciate the relative notion of strategy. For him, these boxes are basically that strategy. Anything else, any decisions, lower level decisions that those might drive are not strategy. It's an artificial distinction. Before we move on to this one, let's do a little quick time check here. What time is it? Okay, got some time. So, does anybody have any questions about the why or the what or any of the sort of opinionated things that I've said up to this point?
So a quick thing, like, would you be, like, in the next upcoming slides, we're talking about the distinction between vision and strategy, since, like, earlier you mentioned just a foundation of it, right?
Good question. So the question is around, okay, some of these other product management thought leaders have distinguished between vision and strategy. Within this relative framework that I've been discussing here, how does that play out? How do you take those concepts and how do they fit together? Is that a fair?
Yes, and the reason why I bring it up is because you talked about goal. Like, the goal is part of the strategy, whereas many folks say the vision also has a goal.
Yeah.
Right in that direction. That's what.
So I definitely did not intend to endorse a distinction between vision and strategy. Vision is part of strategy. Because your vision, your product vision, is a high-level decision that is going to help you make decisions, lower-level decisions, that are compatible with that choice that you've already made. So if your vision is this product is going to create a world for customers, for its customers, that makes it so that they will never have to deal with X problem again. That's your, sorry?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Based on cognitive commerce, which is your predictive analytics and your on-demand manufacturing, how does that play into this concept?
On-demand manufacturing.
Customization, predictive analytics, on-demand manufacturing. How does that play into the old paradigm that we're talking about?
Sure, it depends what you mean. So let's say you are, can you describe your industry? Because I recall from previous product camps that you're actually in this.
My products, our factory support networks, we are doing on-demand product development now. And so we can customize products to the customer's demand.
Right.
And we're not using mass production anymore.
Okay.
It's all customization on demand. So my question is, how does cognitive commerce, where you can predict what the customer wants before they even know they want it, based on their behavior and their interaction, and then customize it if you don't have it to that? So does that play a part in this?
Sure. I mean, it sounds like the first question that I would ask is, what problem is this on-demand product? Yeah.
How does that work in?
So we'll get into that. We'll get into that in the how, sort of how you develop a product strategy and kind of what ends up being in your product strategy. But for the moment, vision is part of strategy, because when you choose a vision for your product, you are saying to some extent what we are going to do, what's important to us, and what's not important, and what we're not going to do. Right? If it's incompatible with the vision, we're not doing it. Okay? So who needs to be, well, there's a little bit of a double entendre that you may have noticed here. Why, what, who, and how. You can look at that as why do you need a product strategy? What is a product strategy? How do you create a product strategy? But you can also look at it as these are actually components of the product strategy itself. If you can answer who's going to buy, who are you targeting to buy and use your product, that's who. Why they would want to buy it, what problem you're going to solve, that's the why, et cetera. So just to note the sort of double entendre there. But for the who right now, we're going to look at who needs to be in the room for product strategy. And I'm going to contend that it's basically everybody on the team who has a hand in making decisions with respect to the product. And those decisions can be very low-level decisions. They can be coding decisions for the developers. They could be what word are we going to use in a social media post for the digital marketers. All of those decisions can be influenced by product strategy. Let's take that. Let's take that one. We're going to do what was formerly known as a tweet to market our product, right? What words should we use? Well, maybe we should use words that are compatible with whom we've chosen to be in our target market and what problem we're going to solve for them. What are the words that are associated with that problem? So you can see even the lowest level decision about words in tweets are driven by product strategy. So everybody should be involved in product strategy at some level to fully understand and appreciate what the product strategy is and how it's going to impact their day-to-day decisions.
Excuse me, you're saying it's not necessarily top-down, right? Not necessarily a top-down thing.
Right. And I will admit I have a little bit of a sensitivity here I don't like top-down kind of decisions. But I currently work in a pretty top-down environment that actually works really well. And we had a hand up.
Yeah, you said everyone should be involved in some sense of product strategy, but who needs to be in alignment? Meaning which different departments need to be aligned. Say,
Sure.
marketing, different business.
Everyone, right? From the person writing the tweets to the person deciding on the next line of code that they're going to write to the and then obviously the executive team. But if you can get them in the room, this is what a lot of you probably recognize, this kind of diagram right here. Anybody have a name for this kind of diagram? Lean canvas. Got it. Yep. Sorry?
Business model?
Yep. People talk about business. This originally was derived from the business model canvas. Was that Alex Osterwalder or somebody else?
Yeah,
Sorry?
he has a little bit complicated surname. The author has a little bit
Anyway, there was the business model canvas came, and then later there was a guy named Ash Maurya, local, came up with a similar canvas called the Lean canvas, and that's what this is. Use whatever canvas you want, but you can see that these when you're making decisions and you're filling out this canvas, these are things that affect all of those lower level decisions. If you choose as your unique value proposition that you're going to focus on eliminating anxiety for consumers as they buy or sell cars, eliminate anxiety in a personalized way. Everything that you do should be in pursuit of realizing that value proposition for your target audience. The channels you use, the problems you're choosing to solve, the key metrics that sort of measure the extent to which you are realizing that value proposition, all those things are these kinds of decisions that you should respect as everybody on the team makes their more tactical decisions. So these are kind of those higher level components of strategy that drive those lower level decisions. So how do you create your product strategy? Well, you start at sort of at the top this way, and you want everybody in the room ultimately. Maybe you start with your executive team, and if you can, it's a canvas like this provides a really good means of having the right conversations and getting people on the same page, such that after you fill in all these boxes and everybody's like, yeah, I totally get that. Then the next time there's a controversy over what a priority is, refer back to the canvas. And we all got together and we all sort of came up with it collaboratively and we all agreed. So respect it. But ultimately, you do want everybody in the company to be aligned on that set of high-level strategic choices. And it's enabling. It's not just, you must do this, whether you buy into the strategy or not. It's more around, this enables you to focus. This enables you to make those decisions and not go back to executives and say, well, should I do this or this? What does the strategy say you should do?
How often would you like to revise it or revisit it? How often should you?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like how often would you like revisit or strategy as far as does it you look at it a few times a year or?
So I think there are a lot of times when conversations come up when somebody says, yeah, but I don't believe that our priority should be this. I don't care what the strategy says. I don't care if it doesn't align with our unique value proposition or the personas that we've decided represent our target market. When that comes up, that's the correct response. We can revisit our strategy. It sounds like you're saying we have the wrong strategy or that our strategy is incomplete. Maybe we should have a conversation around that. But if we do continue to buy into the strategy as it already is, then let's align to it. So that's when those conversations can arise about revisiting the product strategy is when on particular day-to-day decisions or decisions that should flow out of the strategy, people are defying the strategy, saying that you shouldn't follow it. Okay. Besides bringing people into the room and using a lean canvas to get aligned on product strategy, develop and align on product strategy, what are some other components of high-level product strategy? So here's one that I call the competitive mind share. And basically, this is a way of positioning your product, of coming up with that unique value proposition box. What do you provide that's unique and solves a valuable customer problem? So one way you can do that is you can create one of these, and you basically take the different players in your space, different potential competitors, and you basically say, well, acknowledge they have certain strengths, and maybe you don't want to compete with the strengths that they have, and you want to find your niche that is different. They're already solving problems, and they're already known for solving those problems. They've already captured that mind share in the market. Then find some mind share that you can capture that's different, that is valuable too. Mention personas. Personas are a great way of defining who you're selling to, who your users are, who you're designing around, who you're targeting with your tweets, all of those things, right? So if you can come up with who's great at this particular company that I worked for that had this persona, we had her picture on the wall, And every time there was a conversation about priorities, what would benefit Lisa? Roadmap, I think, is a little bit more tactical. But as I said, it's hierarchical. There's nothing that is inherently strategic or tactical, but there are things that are more strategic and more tactical relative to each other. Roadmap's a little more tactical, but again, this can be part of your product strategy. I like the now, next, later. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but this was popularized, I believe, by Jana Bastow of Mind the Product. Anyway, this is great because it used to be like you put this timeline, quarters, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Said, like, don't put things on a timeline. Just say now, next, later. Don't commit to things that you can't commit to. So there are some of the key product strategy artifacts. So a lot of companies haven't done this, right? Like pretty much everybody in the room is familiar with at least two or three or maybe all of these components, key components of a product strategy. But very few companies actually do this and really fully sort of appreciate, understand, and align to these kinds of decisions, high-level decisions that they've made. Okay, got 1 minute. Questions?
Can you go back to that value proposition slide?
This one?
That one, and can you just go with those examples? Because on eBay, for example, their specialty is not just vehicles, you can go beyond.
Right. So the idea here is in the context of this company, again, was trying to create a personalized experience that eliminates the anxieties consumers face as they buy and sell cars. So this is about buying and selling cars. And so when you look at this, think of it as being in that context, right? So eBay does lots of stuff. But if you want to buy, in the context of buying and selling cars and the options that consumers already have in doing that, eBay is mostly in this, or at least at the time this was done, was mostly in the specialty vehicles business. It wasn't so much around just buying and selling Toyotas. It was more around if you want a very specific kind of car that's hard to get if you just go to the dealer. This is eBay might be your space for that. And so so the idea is to each segment of this brain sort of carves out the value proposition for that player in the market, that competitor in the market. And you need to find your niche. You need to acknowledge you're not going to be the leader in all of those areas. You need to find where you can be the leader in the area. What unsolved problem is there that you can specialize? So I think we need to wrap now to make sure that we give plenty of time for the next session. Appreciate your participation.